It's 2025. Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for coming. We made it. Beginning of the year for us as the user group. I'm happy to see a lot of familiar faces and a couple new faces. It's great. So in case you don't know who I am, my name is Brian McKeever. I'm one of the organizers on the West Michigan Azure group with Matt and Jay, and I think that's it from an organizer standpoint. We have a fantastic speaker ready for us on another AI-powered session. See what I did there?
Clever.
Yeah. Which we'll get to in a second, but a couple logistics things. Number one, you're all here because you probably saw the Meetup page. Great. We have new social media accounts as of about 2 weeks ago. Thank you to Jay for putting together. We are now on X, formerly known as Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and still YouTube. Did we miss anything? We're working our way up. Okay, all right. So on those social channels, we'll try to keep updates for the following events out there. But YouTube is still the main channel for where the recordings are published, thanks to Matt. So thank you very much. Sessions will be recorded. And actually, I was shocked. I was looking at it about a week or two ago. There's more than like 4 views on the videos. There's a couple hundred on some of them. And that's great. So maybe it's becoming a little bit of a resource for some of us here in West Michigan. So that is the goal of the user group. The goal of the user group is to bring technologists together that use Azure and all the different ways that you can use it. We do try to spread out between app dev, infrastructure, security, governance, and cost save. Those are kind of the broad segments of topics that we've covered in the last 2 years. We're always looking for more, so this is my normal monthly pitch. Please, if you're interested in talking about anything that you do in your daily work, anything that you're interested in, anything you've got success with, and you want to share knowledge, that's why we're all here together. So we have an amazing speaker ready for us. He's going to talk for about 35 to 45 to 50 minutes, whatever he feels like. There's no pressure here. We're going to have a couple of minutes for questions at the end. I do want to thank Chip and Look Forward Marketing for hosting. So thank you very much, as always, Chip. Great location, central downtown. Couldn't do that without having a host. There are times where we will bounce from location to location, but for right now, this works great. If you need anything related to the facilities, the restrooms are through that door. Chip has graciously opens up his drink fridge, which is over behind the bar for drinks if you'd like any. And that's about it from a logistics standpoint. Any questions? I know, it's really complicated, super complicated. All right, so I'm going to pass the mic to Victor Frye. Victor is a senior software engineer at Leading Edge. I have the pleasure of knowing Victor for about a year-ish now.
I think it's closer to like 6 months.
But anywhere in that range works. Met him at a couple conferences, happened to be based here locally, and he volunteered to speak, which is amazing for us to have people volunteer to speak. As you can see, he's going to talk about AI for Dummies. So we're all qualified for this talk. And with that, I will pass it to you, Victor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. All right, testing. All right. So we're going to be talking about AI for Dummies, but first I might as well do a little bit of an introduction. My name is Victor Frye. I keep using the tagline, I'm your friendly neighborhood developer. If you get that joke, you're a nerd just like me. I also proclaim that I am the #1 Clippy fan. That's probably why I'm here at an Azure user group. And I make a lot of jokes when I'm nervous. That includes when I'm presenting. I'm a new speaker, but I'm really enjoying doing this, so glad you guys all came to this. I've been doing software engineering for about over 5 years. I started as an intern at Corewell Health here, and I learned a bunch of things, and I learned a bunch of bad things and good things, just like we all do. And I kept finding and coming back to a lot of cloud native and DevOps technologies. It became my specialty when I moved to my current company, Leading Edge, and automation has just been my passion. So I started getting into this whole AI craze like so many other people, and I'm excited about it. Who here is not excited about it? Yeah, there's at least one person. We're kind of stuck in this part where everyone's talking about AI at the moment, regardless if we want to, and it's here to stay. We hit the point where AI is mainstream. We have grandmothers asking, what is artificial intelligence? We have people using it that really shouldn't. It's a security nightmare, but it's also generating a ton of content, and it's starting to be used in a lot of enterprise scenarios. You might be getting your boss asking you to use AI, Or you might be saying, hey, I got this crazy new idea. And for better or for worse, we're going to be stuck with it and we need to start using it regardless of our experience with artificial intelligence. And I'm guessing most of us aren't data scientists, the people actually building these models. But good news, you don't need to be. AI goes way deeper than ChatGPT. So that's the big moment that hit off last year. ChatGPT released and they started getting all this craze for generative AI. And you started seeing buzzwords like copilots pop up. Microsoft will not let this one die, so we're going to hear about it for a long time. I like some copilots. Others, I don't know what they're doing. Beyond that, we start to get deeper into this feature called AI as a service. And this is probably where we're going to spend a lot of our time today, because this is where I think we're actually going to see a bunch of developers getting started and using AI in their current existing apps. When we start to go deeper, you get into that realm of deep learning. If you don't know, this is probably why it's always referenced with a brain for artificial intelligence. They have these things called deep neural networks, and it's a bunch of fancy lines and dots when they try to visualize it. I don't even understand it. I did try to build one once. I think it worked. I still don't know. You get in that realm of, is my data bad? Did I have enough? I can't say. That was like 8 years ago back in college, and it's come a long way since then. You don't even need to bother with that anymore. But when you go a step deeper, you start to hit this point of machine learning. This is the actual science that's going on in artificial intelligence. The whole goal of teaching computers to somehow learn something and then make an inference, meaning to guess or say what an outcome should be. And we don't need to really focus on the bottom two or copilots, but it's really good to understand that this all exists. There's so many ways we can get started with AI. But when we take a deeper look at AI as a service, this starts to follow that cloud service model we've been hearing about for years. So think your infrastructure, platform, software. There's always some way to interact with it, and that could be REST endpoints, that could be SDKs. This is where we start to get really easy to consume services that provide this functionality for us. The cloud platform manages all the infrastructure for you. You don't have to worry about how it's running other than that it is running. And you can choose which kind of cloud provider we're going to attach ourselves to. Obviously, this is an Azure group, so that's my cloud provider of choice, and that's the one we're going to be taking a deeper look at. But continuing to refine our focus, there's a bunch of AI as a service offerings. You got bots. I think these are starting to go out of favor. That's just a personal guess. You're starting to see all that stuff about agents in the whole Gen AI revolution. You also have these machine learning frameworks. You can use Azure to do what's called auto ML, and it will still help you build ML machine learning frameworks for you that you can actually deploy and make guesses, inferences, whatever technical terminology the data scientist is correcting me in the background. And this is great, but it's, again, that gets a little bit more complicated than we'd like. You have things like data analytics and insights. These are happening more often for you, and you don't even realize it. You have stuff like anomaly detection. Think your credit cards when you're out of state, or you make that $500 purchase that you normally never make, and they're like, why'd you buy $500 of running gear? Aren't you like on the couch all the time? Well, I told my wife I was going to work out. So this is, again, not something we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on that cognitive computing APIs. Fun fact, Azure was calling it cognitive services for a long time. And I think that cognitive computing still confuses me, but you're going to see that pop up a lot more often than you'd like. They kind of mix the two. But why do we want to use AI as a service? Why do we want to start using things like these cognitive computing APIs? They're cost effective. We're going to see a little app, and I'm even going to have some other people come up and use it. Maybe after the presentation, we'll see how willing we get. And first time I built this app, it took about $25 to get up and running. That included running the actual API, everything. The actual inference was pretty cheap. I made it again without deploying it anywhere, under $2. It's 2 weeks. That's kind of incredible. Cutting edge. For $2, you can start using AI in your app. That's a marketing pitch right there. Rapid development and deployment. You don't actually have to build the machine learning models yourself. You can just click a button, you'll have these, and they can start to go. And all the scalability, stability is handled for you. As long as Azure's up and running, hopefully you're going to be fine. We can focus on what you do best. This is going to be the most important part. This is the AI for Dummies part. You don't have to worry about what artificial intelligence really is, how it's working. It's great to know. You'll probably start learning more as you get there, but we can focus on what we do best and what we actually enjoy doing. For me, that's stuff like DevOps automation. That's stuff like actually building applications that users get to use or APIs. And we can still do this while incorporating the features of AI. And we start to get into that realm of innovation and experimentation. This app is not going to be something you normally run in an enterprise. It was just fun. And I keep preluding to that. So let's start getting there. Building with artificial intelligence as a service. Let's start doing something with it. But what actually is offered out there? Computer vision is one of the first ones that I started with. And this is all about making the computer be able to see something for us. That could be image classification stuff. Is this a picture of a bee or is it a picture of a 3? I don't know. Maybe it's none of them. You get facial recognition stuff. This is the one a lot of people get concerned about. Who am I? Facebook used to do this all the time, well before AI was the hot topic, when you'd upload a picture and it'd say, hey, I think this is your friend Joe in the picture. It was able to recognize our faces. Optical character recognition, the fanciest name on this list, only challenged by not knowledge mining. Just the ability to see text and be able to parse it out. Hey, that looks like it says the word LaFleur. And the computer can actually pull that and digitize it. Natural language processing. This is the one that actually started this generative AI stuff and comes back to being one of the more cutting edge at the moment. It's also the one I didn't originally think was that interesting. Funny how things change. So you get things like sentiment analysis. When you're processing reviews, you could upload the text of the review and get a feel of whether the customer was happy or sad. You get stuff like machine translation. If you've ever used Teams to start auto-translating for you while you're talking to someone offshores, it's incredible that that even happens. Maybe this is something just like auto-dubbing an anime. You never know. Then you get stuff like speech synthesis. This is converting text straight to speech. And this is why I go back to natural language didn't seem all that interesting, but we started getting into these things where let's predict the next word that would come in a sentence. And then we started getting more advanced versions of artificial intelligence workloads. We get to something like document intelligence. This is an extension of that OCR capability where you upload whole documents and it's able to figure out that, hey, this is a form I recognize. These are all the values that a user put into that form, and we digitize an entire library of documentation at a law firm that all of a sudden now everything's up in their cloud and they don't have to go through filing cabinets anymore. Then you get into knowledge mining. This, like I said, this is the second most confusing term they put in here because knowledge mining is that search index. When you think about Bing, when you think about Google, they have an entire knowledge base with all this information out there and some artificial intelligence working on top of it to process and pull information out. And this is actually the domain you're going to come to find when you're looking at like RAG applications, that another buzzword, where you have to provide a knowledge base and some knowledge mining solution that can pull out that information to feed into something. That's a whole lot of complicated words because, well, some of the new stuff with AI gets complicated. And we're not even going to really look at that too much, but we are going to look at generative AI. This one, despite all the buzz, there are some uses out there that could never have happened before. And one of the main reasons is the ability for content generation. Might even be a nicer word for it because that's what it really is. We're generating new content based off other content we've seen previously. And sometimes it's really funny what you can get out of that. Taking a look, what are some services that actually are provided? Azure has a ton of them. We have stuff like OpenAI, the biggest and craziest. We have AI search. That's going to be that knowledge mining. You can pair those two to get some really fancy things, or you can just start generating new content without the search capabilities. You have computer vision, the tried and true ability to see. And you have stuff like this health insights that I'm actually not even sure what it is, but Azure for sure lets you deploy it as of yesterday. And all these different services are ones that we can already go out and start deploying and start playing with and getting a feel for how we can incorporate artificial intelligence in our application. All right. So what is our application? I had this idea about a year ago when using Slack. So whenever you hover over people in Slack, it'll give this little tooltip just showing who they are. Great. But when you hover over yourself, it tells you, hey, you look good today. I was like, no, I don't. What are you talking about? And I realized it's just static content. It's not actually examining how I look. But what if we could? So let's build an AI-powered web app that displays yourself and roasts you based on what you see. I think of this as the Disney's magic mirror on the wall, except completely inverted, because I just told myself I'm never going to look good today, and then started this spiral that it would be funny to make fun of my coworkers on accident. I told my manager that anytime it saw him, it would definitely roast him. But why limit it to that? Why limit it to him? But how do we go about doing that? We know what we want it to roast us. We want it to be that subreddit that you upload a picture and it just starts speaking. And yeah, we want it to speak to us because reading out in your own voice an insult to yourself is a little sad. We want to create a roast. We can't speak something if we don't have content. And this is going to be one of the key parts that we're going to come to that newer technology. We have to describe an image. Obviously, if it's just a static sentence every single time, it's not going to be funny. It's not going to be imaginative. It's not going to be a unique experience every single time. And then we have to capture the image and display it. When we look at this, only 3 of them really require AI, arguably. The last one might not, but we're going to use it. Capturing and displaying, that's pretty standard for what we do today. But describing the image, you've seen those captioning tools. Usually they rely on user input. What is this image? Please tell me so I don't have to guess. And you get stuff with accessibility like that. But how do you make a computer actually see you? Who knows? But we're going to make it do it anyway. And then how do we create a roast out of that? Well, our ingredients come down to these 3. When we describe an image, we have a captured image, and we want the output of a description. We need the computer to see details, and we might be using computer vision or vision-enabled OpenAI. We're going to take a look at why one of those is way better than the other for this. We also, then when we're creating the roast, we have the image description, but we need text output. So we're going to have to rely on that new-spangled OpenAI. And then we wanted to speak it. So we have that same text, and we moved it. And now we're going to convert that to speech to audio using speech synthesis. So do we use OpenAI, or do we use traditional computer vision for our app? Let's take a look. This is when we get into the actual demonstration parts. So please mind as I fight this. Has anyone used any of the studio capabilities in Azure before? If you have, you might be familiar. Just about every single AI service in Azure includes this friendly little UI. So you can deploy a resource. That part we skipped. It's pretty simple. And then you can start playing with it before you even start integrating it into your app. It uses that same resource that you might deploy to production, or you can separate them out, depends. But in this case, hold on, I'm gonna mute. Don't do that. Nope. And this is where we get into the really awkward random technical difficulties. I don't want to print. I want to extend my display. Okay. I need to be able to see what I'm showing on the screen. Hard. So this is the traditional computer vision service, and there's all sorts of different things you can do. This is included in the AI Vision Studio that I've loaded up right here. You can actually get this through the Azure portal as well. You can also do all of these same things through their APIs and SDKs. It's going through that behind the scenes. I can almost guarantee that. In this case, we know we want to describe an image. So traditional ways we would do this with something like traditional computer vision, we need to take a picture, add a caption. I wonder how complicated it can actually get. So, man holding a microphone. That's not a lot to work with. And if we're going to be making a joke, it's missing a lot of key details. So notice my hair. I've noticed it really likes my hair traditionally, but left it out. There's a dolphin on my shirt. Maybe that's useful. There's a screen in the background. I wonder what else it could pull. I actually don't know, but in this case, all it has is a man holding a microphone. Earlier today, I didn't even get the microphone. I got a man with a beard and glasses. Very unique. I'm not seeing any other beards, glasses, or people in this room. Who knows about assuming gender? You might get into a lot of trouble with that. This presents a problem for us. And this mocking mirror application was actually tried 3 to 5 years ago in the same kind of hackathon project that I decided to build it. And they came across this problem. Even with this level of computer vision, we'd have to build so many different rules to make some kind of fun, engaging application that pulled in something about the user, describing them, and then actually filtering that to apply some kind of roast, some kind of custom response. And to get any kind of custom response, we're going to be doing a lot of random strings. You have 5 different options. Maybe you're this one, or this one. It gets a lot of work, and it turns into a lot of code just to try to build some kind of application that would take a picture of you, describe you, and then provide some kind of response based off that description. So I'll have to figure out if I want to flip back and forth between this because we'll see. Coming back. When we filter it down, we only need 2 services to accomplish those 3 AI tasks. We need the Azure OpenAI service that should be able to take an image and with vision-enabled capabilities, describe one. It should also be able to create content. That's what these generative AI services are specialized in. And then we're going to go with a tried and true, the Azure AI speech service. This can do both text-to-speech, that speech synthesization that we're really looking for. It can also do stuff like speech recognition or keyword. Think your Amazon Alexa bot or your Google Home where you just say, hey, and all of a sudden it wakes up. Think formally, hey Cortana or hey Xbox. Missed those ones. But in this case, we're just going to need it for its speech synthesization capabilities. Okay. I've alluded to enough. There's an app we're going to demo and start seeing some results for. And we're just going to take a look at diving through that application, seeing it run, and seeing how much there is in getting started with these AI as a service offerings from Azure. So, don't worry. First, let's start our application. This might take an awkward amount of time. So I'll fill it by saying I'm using .NET Aspire to start this up. I don't know if a lot of people have played around with it. It's really cool. You'll even see a couple seconds of why it's cool, but there is a React front end to this, and then there's a .NET API running in the background, obviously some cloud services backing it, and that SAMIR is just a PowerShell alias because I'm a little crazy. That's .NET Run. And I get this wonderful little, where are you? You're not duplicated screen. First time presenting this. Told you there'd be a couple hiccups. So, got this little Aspire dashboard, click a link, and I have my app. As I said, this is just a React app, nothing fancy, probably the least fancy part. I'll even share the code to this. We're not actually going to spend much time looking at this, but we will look at the .NET behind the scenes. And we're going to just take a picture. And I'm leaving some parts out because we want to take a look at everything, but it gives a little roast. And what do we got? Tech support cheek. Oh, I don't like that. It really likes the dolphin on the shirt, or has been really mean to me about that. But again, I'm not going to read this, but let's take a look at how it actually works. So, diving in, what do we need to get started in a code world to actually start integrating these AI services? For OpenAI and for a lot of the AI services, you're just going to need an endpoint and an API key. These are really easy to find. How easy? Well, we got our portal, we got our resource, we load it up, and I'm not going to show you the key because I don't want you all using my bills. But we got endpoints, you can copy this. Manage keys, you can open this up and you can copy it. And I just injected it through some user secrets. But those two, plus a deployment name. This is the most unique part of the OpenAI one. And the deployment name is, you know those fancy names like GPT-4o or GPT-03 mini? Well, you get to deploy out which versions of those you want to use. And it has some cost implications. Most of the time, you can just use a nice middle ground. And that looks like something in this Azure AI Foundry portal. We come to deployments. You can get here with ai.azure.com. It's really easy to remember. If you need to bookmark it, do so, but pretty easy. And you get to deploy out a new model. There's a bunch of base models. They even tell you what they do. Stuff like O1, chat completions. In what we're looking to do, describing an image and then generating something new, they are going to call that a completion. And really, we're just looking for one of these chat completion services that's relatively cheap. I found that 4.0 works in a timely enough fashion to give this talk. Mini sometimes doesn't work as fast. I haven't even bothered trying to use these fancy ones. There's a locked icon. I think you need some kind of enterprise agreement or pre-approval to use those. But I deployed one out. You see the model name. It's not what you're going for. You get to give it your own name, and that is your deployment name. This is just a way to reference which one you're using. Maybe you want to use something like one of the high-end ones for a production scenario, and then for testing, you want to use something really low-end that's cheap. That's typically how I go about any kind of development. But with that endpoint and API key, we come over to this OpenAI service that I built. This is all that we're going to need to call and get that chat completion. You have those options that I already showed you, that endpoint API key. You get a client pre-built out of an SDK. And using that client, we have a couple other constants that we'll come to. This method that we're exposed. Our API is just calling this method. we can walk through it. I'm going to ask you to trust me. And we pass in the image bytes. We have to know what kind of image it is. And from there, we build a chat message, as you would. You have a create text part. This is going to be our prompt. This is how we're actually telling it what to expect, what we actually want to coach it into saying. So I'm telling it here, hey, you are a sentient mirror that interacts with users who stand in front of you. They will provide a picture of themselves and be funny. Some stuff about blurring, we're going to come back to that because it creates weird scenarios when you're taking pictures of people. Keep your responses to 2 or 3 sentences. It won't always obey this. This is the fun part of non-deterministic AIs. And then some example responses. Giving examples definitely helps. It's not necessary. I built this prompt out a little bit more than you really need to for some scenarios, especially if you're getting started. But in the end, we say, hey, they're going to provide a picture of themselves. Remember, be funny. And then combine that as our text part with the actual image we're taking. And all we have to do after that is call an existing method, and you get a completion. Just coming back. That completion comes right there. If you don't trust me, we can see same completion coming back. We could try to debug this. That might take more time than any of us want to spend today. And we have text that uniquely describes the picture that we have and then applies some kind of custom response to be funny, to make fun of me, and possibly others, whoever we want to put in front of this camera. All right, well, that's step 1. With about 68 lines of code, we were able to get that completion, most of it being just this prompt. What else what do we need to get speech going? Not much more. I already have it up. We're going to do this in the background because once again, we come back and all you need, an API key and a region. Why speech needs region instead of an endpoint is a little confusing. They like to throw in these little tricks for you. But again, just 2 keys that we can come out to the portal and we're going to be able to find really fast and easy. Once again, here's endpoint. And here's the region. In this case, this is all we need, this endpoint. We add them to our app settings, and it's up and running. What does the code look like? Even smaller. We're at 38 lines. We add those options. We load up what they call a speech config instead of a client because they want to keep changing the names on us. I added some custom things, language and voice name. You can get all sorts of different voices. Some sound soothing, some sound a little creepier. I think you can even build your own. But in this case, again, we're not trying the fancy stuff. We're just going straight at it. You don't have to apply any of these settings and you'll start to see some results. This is just making it a little cheaper for me with stuff like the output format. Turns out lower quality audio costs less for the AI to make in the background. We set those. We tell it we're using our speech synthesizer. I will highlight this null is probably the most important thing in here because without it, it gives us the option to just directly talk to our speakers anytime we call this. Leads to some fun bugs when your API is the one producing sound. And we ask it to speak some text, in return some audio byte data. Our client is back up and running. Ignore the previous running instance. Got to clean up my tabs one of these days. And here we go. It's thinking.
The majestic dolphin on your shirt, truly a tribute to elegance, while your hair suggests you've been riding the waves yourself. Combine that with a sprightly headset, and you're about one karaoke song away from hosting a marine biology talk show.
That was a little louder than I was expecting the audio in the room to be. Again, we have speech. We didn't have to do anything fancy to get it. We just had to call existing APIs. Yes, it's bundled in an SDK. Well, most of us are using .NET or some language that they already made these for, and we get speech data. Sure, it takes a little bit of code to play it on a front end, but maybe you do want to just let it speak through the audio of your API server. I don't know. That's up to you. 38 lines of code for speech. Actually, 31. I'm lying to myself today. 68 lines for generating new content that's unique. We can control how unique it is. We can apply more prompts to it. You can get fancy and start injecting skills. Say you want to talk about the weather as well. You can pull in that kind of data and use that as well. But just getting started, we can provide some simple images or text and use that to chain and get some speech. And we get an app that we couldn't build 5 years ago. It's pretty cool. Yeah? Yeah. So, I'm gonna shut this down. We're gonna go back to our PowerPoint. And I'm gonna admit, trying to manage a mic here, this mic leads to some fun audio disasters that I wasn't expecting. Okay, we're back on track. So, easy, right? Yeah, it really was that easy. And when I said we built this initial app with $25 of spend, we left that on running for a month, letting people use it publicly, as public as my LinkedIn posts expose it. And we built it in 3 days. The only reason I had to rebuild this, just so that I could demo it a little bit and make it a little nicer to look at. 3 days and some change to start using AI in a brand new application. I'm sure it's faster for someone who's already got an application and are looking to integrate this. And I keep saying it's easy. There are some trials along the way. Content filters. So those generative AI services, they filter everything you say and start to look at whether you're trying to do something that might be harmful, whether that's hijacking it or just trying to be mean to people. Turns out making a bot that makes fun of people will flag it. And I had to control some of those settings. They provide some tuning for that, a degree of safe, low, medium, or high. You can only go so far. It does not let you go into that high range. Maybe if you got some special agreement, I don't know. But not for me. Not for me and my personal Azure account. Face blurring, when I talk about that. I had to include 2 blurbs about that in the prompt to get it to stop talking about everyone being a secret agent. Turns out, Azure will blur your face anytime it sees that there is a person in the picture because it is trying to protect people. That face API service that they provide is extremely locked down. You can't just go ahead and start using that one. Faces are a really sensitive matter, so you start to get some weird behavior about that. And then platform requirements. When we start working in the realms of like SDKs, sometimes you get stuff that's unique to the platform you're running on. Speech seems to be the most unique case every time I go about using these AI services because it wants to use things like your speakers, and that requires special libraries that if you're on Linux might be a little bit trickier. If you're on Windows, it's actually easier. Who knew? So there's still some trials along the way, but overall, it's relatively little amount of code to actually get started and start using these services. And with that, maybe we should be responsible. These are the 6 principles of responsible AI that Microsoft provided once upon a time. I don't know if they still treat them, but I still like to follow them. I'm getting a nod that they still respect it. Good, good. Fairness. AI systems should treat all people fairly. Reliability and safety, they should perform reliably and safely. I think one of the examples they use for this one, if you start working with large, heavy machinery and put AI in it, there might be a risk to some of the people around you if it's trying to autopilot or something. Think cars, self-driving cars. A lot of implications if that's not safe. Privacy and security, that's built into the stuff like the face, but maybe be sensitive about whether it's accessing your corporate data and about if it has access to those credit cards or anything, and that's going to be shown out to whoever you're using. Inclusiveness, transparency, AI systems should be understandable. This one's actually my favorite because this is what I'm trying to convey here. There is an element that you might not understand. But you do still want to understand that when you're putting something into like the OpenAI service, hey, it's taking this text, it's filtering this, might flag it or so, and then on the outside, it's giving you new text. Maybe understand a little bit of what's going on there before you just start using it. Play around. It's always one of the safe ways. Accountability. People should be accountable for AI systems. You have to take some responsibility. If you've ever read the book Extreme Ownership, highly recommend. Got that one from a friend. But when you start deploying these out there, you get some weird results. I did in my testing get one of these that looked like it combined Russian, Chinese, and machine speak. I have no idea what happened. I just sent another request and I got it. You're going to want to be aware of that because if you start showing this to users, yes, that might show up to them. Luckily, it wasn't trying to speak at that point because I don't even know what it would say. And then you might be asking, was this app even applicable? Like, yeah, I could build something that takes a picture of you and mocks you, but how often are we actually going to do that and use it in the real world? Well, maybe we're not mocking them. Maybe we're complimenting them. Think of self-checkout. What if at Meijer, every time you went to the self-checkout, it saw you, it's already taking pictures of you trying to make sure you're not stealing something? I know because it weirdly flags me an awful amount. I'm sorry. I just move my hands a lot, I swear. And then it greets you and says, hey, you look nice today, but actually uses something about your appearance and provides a compliment. Maybe at the gas station, again, you already know it's looking at you. Maybe it comments on the weather and telling you, hey, it looks cold out there. Hope you're staying warm. Who knows? Fashion app that comments on outfits with fashion tips. I know a lot of tech people aren't into fashion, but if you are, maybe you want to get some tips that, hey, that looks nice paired with that, or you look chic today. This app was the only one that's ever called me that I was looking chic, and felt nice. And those are two ideas that I came up with on the spot, trying to convince that this is an applicable use. So I'm sure many of you can come up with more if we just start going ahead and plugging in these AI services. Yes, it's new, it's cutting edge, it's scary, all the implication, but there's actually a lot of these services that have been in use for a long time and are still applicable, and it might be really cool what we can do with them. Now that they've hit mainstream, you can actually get attention like, hey, I want to use AI for this solution. Well, marketing might be excited to advertise that, so let's go ahead and actually use it. Wouldn't it be nice to get those blessings? And that is all. Somewhere around. So thank you. You can go ahead and scan that QR code. It just provides a feedback form for me, asks simple questions like, have you used AI? I work for a consultancy called Leading Edge. It is not local to here. I'm a remote worker, but if you ever wanted to partner with us where you're doing a lot of stuff with AI like everyone else, and then for the code behind this, it's publicly accessible. GitHub, Victor Frye /mockingmirror. You'd obviously need your own keys. I did not put secrets in there. Any questions? Anyone actually doing stuff with AI currently?